Ubuntu lens, I am because we are. The diaspora shapes global businesses development by fostering shared values across borders. Diaspora entrepreneurs link markets, mobilize capital, transfer skills, and build trust-based networks that enable trade, investment, and innovation. By prioritizing collective progress over individual gains, diaspora-led businesses drive inclusive growth, strengthen local enterprise, and create sustainable economic opportunities in both home and host economies. To look into this, we have Collins Nweke, Global Affairs Analyst, and I dare say a member of the diaspora. Let's get into how Ubuntu Ideas of I Am Because We Are changes the way diaspora entrepreneurs do business across borders.
Well, Joanna, for having me, and thanks for taking interest in the philosophy of Ubuntu. Ubuntu reframes business from individual profit maximization, like you alluded to shared value creation. For diaspora entrepreneurs, it means success is no longer measured only by balance sheets, but by how many suppliers are localized, how skills are transferred, and how communities, are uplifted. Across border, Ubuntu encourages partnerships of extraction, joint ventures rather than outsourcing, ecosystems rather than silos. It turns diaspora business people into bridge builders who align global capital, local knowledge, and community interests. So in practical terms, let me say this. Ubuntu produces more resilient enterprises because communities become stakeholders rather than, the spectators that they conventionally are.
Right, and you argue that Africa's diaspora is more than a remittance pipeline. What does it actually mean to treat the diaspora as an economic and diplomatic actor?
Well, that's a topic that I actually, explored, in very far-reaching details in my upcoming book, Economic Diplomacy of the Diaspora. The point I'm arguing here is that treating the diaspora as an economic and diplomatic actor means recognizing them as co-producers of development, not just people who send money. Diaspora carry market intelligence, regulatory literacy, global networks, and credibility in foreign markets because that's where they are based and, being part of, such jurisdiction. So economically, they reduce investment risk. Diplomatically, they act as informal ambassadors. I mean, there is a saying we have here that ambassadors of Nigeria come and go, but the diaspora remains the permanent ambassadors of Nigeria. So they help to shape narratives, it is not, hidden how much negativity Nigeria has, suffered in, foreign media and all of that. The diaspora helped to, reshape such, negativities, unlocking trade access because those who are economic players here are probably their friends and associates, and influencing policy environments. Once states move from thanking you for remittances to partner with us in strategy, the diaspora becomes a multiplier of national competitiveness. That is the extent to which, the diaspora is of value.
Right, and why do you think it's important to ground diaspora economic strategy in Ubuntu rather than in conventional business or development thinking?
Well, because, Joanna, conventional business thinking often prioritizes efficiency over equity. I mean, that is not to say that efficiency isn't, important, but equally important is equity. While development thinking can unintentionally entrench dependency. Ubuntu, as a a business philosophy, offers a third way, and that third way is growth with dignity. It reflects African reality where markets are social before they are transactional. Ubuntu insists that capital must have conscience and growth must have roots. By grounding diaspora strategy in Ubuntu, we ensure that investments, just don't arrive, but that they stay when they arrive, but that they circulate and at the same time transform local economics.
Right. And what gets lost when diaspora engagement stays at the level of one-off giving instead of long-term systems building, I beg your pardon?
Yeah, well, it's as simple as ABC. I mean, what gets lost, Joanna, is sustainability. One-off giving treats symptoms, school fees, medical bills, and all of those, little but important things, but, they quite don't fix broken systems. Systems building create institutions, vocational pipelines, supply chains, export transport platforms, and as a matter of fact, even governance capacity. Without this shift, generosity becomes repetitive rather than transformative. So Ubuntu teaches us that dignity comes not from charity, but from participation in a functioning economic system. I mean, it couldn't be emphasized enough, really.
Right. And how can remittances move from household support to becoming real investment capital that builds industries and jobs?
Well, quite simple, through aggregation, as a matter of fact. The shift requires aggregation, structure, and trust. Individually, remittances support families, like I have mentioned, school fees, medical bills, and all of that. Collectively, they can capitalize industries. This means diaspora investment vehicles, cooperatives, credit, guarantees, and transparent regulatory frameworks. Once remittances are pooled and de-risked, they become patient capital, able to finance agro-processing, manufacturing, health, and tech. The goal is not to stop family support. We have to be upfront about that, but actually to layer it with productive investment.
Right. And when you say wealth should circulate rather than exit communities, what does that look like in practical business terms?
Well, in practical business terms, Joanna, what it means is, local sourcing as opposed to, going far away, to source. Local reinvestment, and then, most importantly, local ownership. Practically, it looks like diaspora-backed firms hiring locally, buying from, domestic suppliers, reinvesting profits into expansion and also building local management capacity. When wealth circulates, one job creates another. When it exists, communities remain dependent. I mean, it is not a coincidence that Nigeria over the years developed what they call, local content. Yeah, okay, local content may not, be working as excellently as it was envisaged, but it is there, and it can only grow better. So Ubuntu insists that capital must move within communities before it moves out.
Right. Move within communities before it moves out. And how does your book reframe the conversation around brain drain, especially for African professionals abroad?
Very important question, Joanna. Well, my upcoming book, the economic diplomacy of the diaspora, actually reframes brain drain as brain circulation. Talent abroad is not talent that is lost, like most people would want to, let you believe. It is a misaligned. It is, completely misaligned. African professionals overseas actually acquire skills, capital, and credibility. I will share something that, late Dr. Christopher Collade, told me once, at the High Commission in London. He said to me, well, Collins, listen, Nigeria has been battered through military rule and all of that. One thing that you guys in the diaspora bring to the table is that you are not soiled by those, vagaries that visited Nigeria at that time. So from, where you are, a neutral position, you can actually view things, differently and more objectively without emotions and sentiment. So that actually points to the value that those who have sojourned out of Nigeria bring. It is not a negative thing. So, the failure lies in weak institutional channels to plug them back into national development. So, Ubuntu sees the diaspora not as deserters of the country, but as extended limbs of the African economy, ready to reconnect if the pathways exist. And indeed, it is that pathways that, the diaspora continue to advocate. And Nigeria has set it up. We do have, as of today, NIFCOM, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, that is meant to galvanize the diaspora. Before it, we have, the diaspora now have a formal, partner in, the diaspora, which is Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, NIDO. And above all, let's not forget that, the 4D of the current Nigerian, foreign policy actually has the diaspora as one of, those Ds. So they keep refining and, realizing that Ubuntu, they may not have used that term, but one way or the other, it is mirrored in current, discourse, but also official policy documents.
Institutions, rather than individuals, play in making diaspora knowledge transfer sustainable?
Yes, that is actually the point. Individuals ignite change, but institutions are the ones that sustain those change. Governments, chambers of commerce, universities, research centers, and diaspora agencies must create formal pipelines, fellowships, return programs, virtual advisory boards, and joint research platforms. When knowledge transfer is institutionalized, it survives personalities and politics. That is Ubuntu at scale, as a matter of fact.
And from your perspective, what separates meaningful diaspora-led development projects from just the symbolic or feel-good interventions?
Simple: impact versus optics. Meaningful projects solve real economic, constraints: jobs, productivity, exports, skills, name it. They have governance structures, measurable outcomes, and local ownership. Symbolic projects make headlines quite all right, but they fade quite quietly. Ubuntu asks a simple test: does this intervention empower the community to stand on its own feet? That is self-reliance, and that is what Ubuntu is all about, and the diaspora should be gravitating towards that.
And if diaspora business leaders, if they embrace Ubuntu fully, what would change first in how Africa engages global markets?
Well, I would say that, Africa will shift from being a price taker to, value creator. Diaspora-led enterprises would anchor exports, negotiate better trade terms, and tell Africa's story with confidence. Global markets would engage Africa not as a charity case or raw material source, but as a strategic partner. So Ubuntu would turn Africa's global engagement from transactional to transformational.
And we look forward to seeing all of that pan out. Thank you so much for your perspective and contribution on the show this morning, Collins Nweke, Global Affairs Analyst.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.